Beware Romulans bearing gifts.
Hi, this is Eric.
This is Kat.
And this is Carl.
And welcome back to this Romulans Bearing Gifts. This is episode 68 and the return of our crewmate, long missing in action, Kat.
I'm back. Was not dishonorably discharged, so I'm here.
For being Illyrian.
Yeah, so it's really great to be back and talking Star Trek with you guys. I miss you. I love Star Trek. I don't know.
But season 2, episode 3, Strange New Worlds, tomorrow and tomorrow and tomorrow. It is, of course, taken from the opening of Shakespeare's Macbeth. The entire opening goes like this. Tomorrow and tomorrow and tomorrow creeps in this petty pace from day to day to the last syllable of recorded time. And all our yesterdays have lighted fools the way to dusty death. Out, brief candle. Life's but a walking shadow, a poor player that struts and frets his hour upon the stage, and then is heard to no more. It is a tale told by an idiot, full of sound and fury, signifying nothing. And to translate that into common speech, basically, the very opening of the play, Macbeth, is just reflecting on how time just passes on, and it's just like the same old, like, what's the point of going on with this? But anyway.
Oh my God, I can't believe they just keep dipping into the well of Macbeth. Star Trek. I'm here for it. I love it, but whew.
So this is a La'an heavy episode. And is it weird that I only realized about a week ago that La'an kind of sounds like Ka'an? But anyway.
Oh, okay.
I know. I swear I did not pick up on that in season 1.
Me either.
Or if I did, I forgot.
I didn't think.
I didn't pick up on it.
But anyway, it's a La'an-centric episode. And, it starts off with her doing her typical duties as security officer on the Enterprise. She has this great moment with the Dr. Mbenga. And I don't want to say it's like a T'Pol moment in Enterprise or a Seven moment in Voyager. But she's looking her best. I'm just going to leave it at that during that scene. But it's cool, though, because the actor who plays Mbenga, I don't know if y'all know, but he's in real life, he's a black belt in jiu-jitsu. So they're kind of tapping into some of his real-world expertise during that scene. And, of course, we get to check in on Pelia real quick and all her stolen artifacts, or we don't know how she got them. Before a time agent appears out of nowhere, out of time, he's about to die, and he passes on like his little flip phone onto La'an, and somehow protects her as it seems like the world is being rewritten, a la the beginning of City on the Edge of Forever, or like the beginning of First Contact when the Borg like reboot the universe, and La'an goes to the bridge because that's what she was told to do, and we have Kirk, captain of the Enterprise, having a curious insignia, Tholian-inspired insignia on his chest. And it is an alternate timeline that we are now in where the Starfleet and the Federation never existed. Every alien race is out, for their own. There's no unification. It seems like there's just like an ongoing war between, of course, Romulans and humans and other types. Spock is he's really hurting over there in his Vulcan ship. He's not part of Starfleet, obviously. Well, Starfleet doesn't exist. And then there's a little tussle, and we end up in the year 2022. Initial reactions from anyone?
Well, I really like that when they first landed and they have this big scene. It looks like they're smack dab in the middle of Times Square. Then you're like, oh yeah, we're not on the West Coast anymore. Screw. And then you know you're in New York City, but you're not. You turn around and it's Toronto. And the one thing I want to say about that is I'm really glad that they decided to come out the closet of Canada and just like show Canada. I mean, our shows have been there. All this like sci-fi has been there for years shooting in Canada, and it's just like, oh yeah, we can't show she's the ugly stepchild. We can't really say that we're in Canada. But this time they did, and it was fine. Nothing exploded, and people are fine with it being shot in Canada. It's good for them to own it.
Well, technically it did explode, but that's another
Well,
question.
If they wanted to be real funny, they could have shot it in New York City and said it was Toronto.
that would have been
That might have been
hilarious.
a little bit too meta.
That's funny. That's funny.
Yeah.
So I got confused with her for a second. I was like, wait a second, is this the same actress from Orville? Because like I feel like she's similar to that one young actress.
Like the one with super strength?
Yeah.
Yes, open this jar of pickles.
Yeah. So I was just like, I had like a brain freeze for a second. Like,
A little bit.
Yeah, I was just like, wait a second, those are not the same people. And but sometimes they read as the same character to me in my brain, so I had to like get that out of my brain. But this episode, question though, this is not, or do we know which like, is this the universe where it's Dark Uhura and Terra and
No. It is not that mirror universe. You mean where Kirk came from?
Yeah.
No, this is completely separate.
Have we been to this one before?
Probably not.
Do you think?
No.
Probably
no,
not.
No.
So they have an entire new. Okay. I just thought that was interesting. I didn't know if anybody had any, like, knew if that was the same, or could it be the beginnings of it? Or
Well, that's the thing. Whenever they do these time travel episodes, these forks occur.
Yeah.
And the question is, does the fork continue to exist, or as a result of cleaning things up, does the fork, disappear? So
I just think if it exists forever. It's not gonna.
Well, see, that's the question though, because we are assuming that once the timeline is set right, the errant fork disappears.
Right. Yeah.
So that is the assumption. I mean, you're making a good point. Maybe there's a fork that just, even though this has happened, it still keeps going. But we are assuming this is not mirror universe. This is not, this is literally just a new fork that would have been spawned by the Romulans, just like there was the fork that would have been spawned by the Borg from First Contact. But if you set things right, those timelines disappear, and then they
Exactly. Apparently, one would think that this alternate timeline was literally created, just after that time agent passed, and then presumably whatever plot he was trying to foil succeeded, and then completely put Lon's universe, supposedly the Prime universe, out of existence, and then that would be the creation of this new timeline.
Tell me this.
Okay.
Bro was looking like he was straight out of 1940, 50, or 60. That's a range of styles there. I don't know. He was old timey. But when they went back to our time, 23 to 2022, what was old guy doing in 2022 with those type of clothes? And then, do we know who shot him?
When you say old guy, you mean the time agent?
The time agent.
Yes.
Yeah.
That's what she's talking about.
Okay.
So the quick answer is there's no guarantee that he came from that same time that they went to. So just because they sent them to 2022 doesn't mean that's where Time Agent came from. Now, his suit is more contemporary than 1940, so whatever you're thinking about.
But he had on a hat, and men haven't really worn a fedora.
What?
Didn't he have on a fedora, or no?
I don't think he had a hat. I don't remember that.
I don't think
Okay, I just imagined another fork episode on my own. I think they gave me a different episode, y'all.
Okay.
The way I thought of his look, hair and suit or whatever, was kind of like how I thought of the time agent who we see at the end of the episode, which is, to me, they reminded me of like a TNG aesthetic of costumes and hair. So I almost feel like they're being loosely consistent with time agents from the 90s Trek.
Well, it did kind of feel like that, but but there you go. So yes, no, not too old timey. Two, there's no guarantee that he came from the same time that they did. Now, okay. So there's one thing I've been a little curious about, and I don't know if you all picked this up. The quick answer is it is possible that he came there from the 90s. So there's this moment where what's the Romulan's name? Do we know what her name is?
Sarah.
Sarah. There's this moment where Sarah's pretty upset outside the con doorway, where she tells her that she's been stuck there waiting for this moment since '92, and so that means that she has been there in that timeline from '92 until 2022, waiting for whatever this moment is, this critical moment in the timeline to occur. I thought that was.
I don't know why she's so cranky. I've been waiting too. I've been still in the same damn timeline. I don't know what she's bitching about.
So one, the outfit might have been from '92. That so that's when she might have shot him back then in '92. But she's been angry and hanging around, waiting for her moment to happen. But does anybody else remember any? I mean, here's my question: anybody remember any '92 relevant stuff from any of the other Star Trek? Because I think Voyager, they
yes. Oh, not from the series, but from the lore, yes.
Do you remember when Voyager went back? Because remember the whole West Coast...
Voyager, I want to say they went back to, approximately 2020s.
Do you think it was 2020s? All right, maybe. Okay, so...
they hit multiple periods, but the one that they did most of the episode in, I want to say was 2020s.
The one where they were in the observatory? Where they went to the observatory?
I don't remember the observatory. I'm thinking about when they were. Oh wait, shoot.
I remember the observatory.
I might be thinking about DS9. I'm sorry. I'm thinking about the DS9 episode.
Anyway, so I was just trying to figure out if they were trying to do some kind of overlap like that, because it was interesting that they made such a big that they brought up the point that she had been there so long.
Well, okay, there's still more. There's a lot to unpack here.
So anyway, Kat, your outfit, I'm
looking at it now. I'm gonna send y'all a screenshot.
Yeah, okay. So the outfit, no hat, no fedora, could have been 90s, because it had that that silky gray tie like we used to rock back in the day.
Yeah,
so,
now that I look at it, it does look more 90s.
And so if that's the case, maybe she shot him. Boom, that's where where the outfit came from, and where all that trouble came from. But she's been hanging around mad, waiting for time all the time since then.
I like this theory. I really do. My only issue or part that doesn't line up is I love this idea that he was shot in the 1990s. But the first thing he says is go to the bridge, and presumably he's talking about the bridge in Canada. But how would he know in the 90s that the key moment would be then 30 years in that future?
No, because time agents have the quantum computers that track paths.
That's true, but it seems like that wouldn't have been the timeline until literally he just got shot, and then it seems like then that would be part of the new future in that Earth.
I think that's what the paths that the time computers show, because when you see
that is true.
A branching timeline, we're assuming the timelines are events. Events.
Okay, that tracks. And by the way, they did use that same. They call it T-cars. The graphic that you see in the episode, they emulated the graphic from the Voyager episode, nice. So there's some type of connection there.
All right.
But let's just go ahead and get into this real quick, because this is the thing I was going to get into in the end of the episode, but we've already kind of got into it, so I might as well go all the way. Mm-hmm. So we'll get back to me liking this episode after we deal with this. Oh. So I was already wondering what the hell's going on, because once we started, realizing we're getting into this Noonien Singh, what do you call it? Foundation or something. And then we see the Khan name written on the door. For a brief moment, they hint to the Horner score from Wrath of Khan for just like barely a second, which is cool. Actually, the score for this, I don't know if it's always the same person doing the music for Strange New Worlds, but this episode had particularly good music. But anyway,
It was fun.
I was already going, wait a second. It's 2022. Why? How in the world is Khan a young boy in 2022? And this is even before I realized about the whole 1992 speech. Because Khan should have been a little boy, I guess circa 1970s. Now, hold on. Let me ask y'all a question before I proceed down this road. Did y'all ever think that we live in the actual same timeline as Star Trek?
Yeah.
The answer is yes.
Sort of, yeah.
So you guys have thought that the world of Star Trek, like we exist in that same universe, quote unquote.
For the most part, yes. But remember, I'm an old school fan. There was a time while I was watching Star Trek that 1990s was the future.
Right.
Sure.
So there was a time where I believed that our timeline was Starfleet's timeline.
Okay,
so
that's fair.
We're in a fork, so we've missed major goalposts or whatever, so we're not on the exact time.
Well, speaking for myself, certainly since the late 80s, I don't know about prior to that, but certainly since the late 80s, I have never thought that we literally lived in the same universe as Star Trek. Definitely a lot of similarities.
So hold on. Let me let you clarify. I need a question first. I'm sorry. So I say we live in the same universe, but we are on a different timeline. And you're saying we're not even in the same universe.
Okay, I mean it like this. I hope this will clarify.
Okay.
Just like when I watch modern Marvel movies, MCU, I don't literally think that we live in the same exact universe that these superheroes live in. Obviously, there's a lot of similarities, like New York City, and there's references to pop culture in the movies and things like that. But I don't literally think that we are seeing stories that are literally from our...
I mean, we're not, because they haven't happened. Because I don't understand. What do you mean by literally? Like
I don't literally think that the world, even that Captain America really was in World War II, as opposed to because obviously he's a fictional character, but historical fiction, is based on our universe with these other characters. But I don't think of MCU as we're in the same universe, literally the same universe.
Well, I mean, I don't think I do either.
I don't feel that way about MCU, but that's the same way I feel about Star Trek in general.
Well,
there's a lot of similarities, but it's not literally a shared timeline.
So, Carl, are we confused, or are we talking about the same thing? Because I don't think we live I don't think that Thor is going to come and he's wandering around right now, as Chris Hemsworth.
I mean,
but I think you all are right in the way you explained the Star Trek thing.
Yeah, I mean, look,
and how you feel about it.
I know what you're both saying. I mean, this is the best I can say to reconcile it. Star Trek, until the era of Next Gen rolled around, was in a possible timeline for humanity.
Yes.
So original series back in the 60s when they came out with it, and they were talking about clones in the 90s and that kind of stuff. That was a possible timeline for humanity at that time. That seemed just like it was a possible timeline for humanity. Now, we did not achieve any of that stuff, and as more and more of that stuff looked like we weren't going to make it, then it felt like it was no longer in our timeline.
Okay.
So that is, that's the way to reconcile. You compare that with the Marvel universe, which is, like you said, supposedly in the simultaneous era that we are in, yet they got helicarriers and aliens and stuff dropping off. It is less. We cannot maintain that would be the present, the present timeline, because clearly the technology is way more advanced and the stuff it's approachable because it's our era, but it can't be now because the stuff we don't have any of that technology, any of that capability.
All right.
So then tell me this, and I would say the same thing about Lord of the Rings Middle Earth. Like, it could quite possibly be, us, but it's not. You know what I mean? Like,
I can accept it as us because through most fantasy, there is a time where humanity loses touch with magic.
right.
So, there's an unrecorded history that could have been our past for that type of thing. But again, you see, if we're not in the same space, if it's not in our face violating what we know as at present, we can leave it, we can give it that space. We can give it that, that ability. But you can't do that with Marvel because it's literally New York City and there are helicarriers and aliens and all kinds of stuff happening right at the same time.
Okay. Yeah.
I was actually mostly on board on everything said up until we got into the Lord of the Rings, because for me, I can only kind of see that kind of stuff or Game of Thrones or whatever as more like mythology or something like that, rather than same universe. But that's digressing. As far as the other stuff that's said, I think that's all fair points and helps clarify some things before we go deeper into this situation on Strange New Worlds. So it's explained as said that, this Sarah character was trying to complete a mission in 1992, but apparently the Romulans, but not just the Romulans, it's hinted, like they drop hints to like the Temporal War. It sounds like they could be speaking of the one that was in Enterprise. But a bunch of people have been trying to jack with certain things in Earth history, and apparently, okay, so this is supposed to be some type of like major moment. This with Khan, that apparently Romans have determined that if not for Khan rising to power and everything, like that is what actually leads to the creation of Starfleet and the Federation. And so human history, no matter what iteration, it needs this Khan moment to propel it into like to be the Federation and Starfleet that we all know. That if you could somehow take away the Khan incident or the eugenic wars, then humans will not turn into the Federation or Starfleet. So this is like a big moment that Romulans apparently have figured out. And apparently Romulans and others have been trying to muck with the human timeline or the Earth timeline. And apparently they've been successful to some degrees here and there. We don't know the details. But no matter what they do, according to Sarah, the timeline still finds a way to get back on track, even if it's not exactly the same. So because of mucking around, they somehow prevented Khan and the eugenics business of the 1990s, but they were only able to delay it for about 30 years or more because Khan's still a kid. So she's yet again, she's an agent of the Romulans, yet again trying to prevent the formation of the Federation, yada, yada, yada. So this stuff, like this little explanation in the episode went by pretty quick the first time I watched the episode.
I missed it.
Like I could tell something was going on there, but I was like, I'll get back to that like on my second rewatch because I was more like in the moment of the story at hand. So I didn't deal with it initially, but I did go back and I've seen it like at least 4 times now this episode, but especially concentrating on this part because my initial thought was, okay, they must have a plan here. Like they're dropping stuff about temporal war, Romulans. I'm thinking they're planting more seeds that will be explored later in Strange New Worlds season 2 and probably lead into season 3 or something. Like they're trying to set something up by changing the Earth timeline just a little bit. And I'm thinking, okay, I'll give them the benefit of the doubt, and I'll wait for that to materialize. And I was at peace with it for a day or two. But then I heard these quotes from Akiva Goldsman, the showrunner of the show, and he was interviewed, and he specifically spoke to this. And personally, I didn't like his answer, and it kind of freaked me out. But other people feel differently. And basically what he said, to paraphrase, he said that, as Carl mentioned, as the world has moved on into the future, and there was obviously no eugenics war in the 90s, etc., the planet has caught up with established like TOS and Star Trek history. So obviously things that they predicted haven't come to pass. And so he said that what they did here with this episode, and actually it didn't start with this episode, it actually started in season 1 of Strange New Worlds. They have intentionally, the showrunner and the writers have intentionally been trying to reset things in the Star Trek universe to reestablish it as the world that we live in present day, so that present day doesn't contradict Star Trek anymore, and that they've tried to buy more time so that we in present day 2022 can still look at Star Trek as our aspirational, real timeline future. And he also mentioned, of course, you can only do this so much because obviously you're going to catch up eventually to other things in Star Trek chronology. But he said that was their direct intention, to make Star Trek our shared universe again. And me personally, I was like, I don't know, WTF you're talking about. Like, this is insanity. Like, this was never, ever an issue for me before. Because, again, me personally, I've never thought since the late 80s that we literally lived in the same timeline as Kirk, etc. I did not need that fixed. And this is the kind of stuff that I was getting into online battles about, because there seems to be a faction of people who are in my camp. And then there's this other faction who is like, no, this is great. This is great to quote unquote fix things, fudge things, because they're making the argument the eugenic wars never happened. World War III is supposed to happen like in 5 years, and da 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 da. So now it's all fixed, and so there are people who are totally in favor of this alteration, and so this is the kind of stuff that it was getting testy, going back and forth with people, and if that was the reason, I don't like it. If he was planting seeds for some future story, maybe he still is, Goldsman, planting some seeds for some future unfolding plot line, I'm so open to that. But the whole reasoning to be just so our regular world continues to jibe with Star Trek, I that doesn't serve any purpose to me. But again, there's people who don't agree with me on that.
So I used to get teased by my ex because I felt that when you watch cartoons like the old ones and they show like the world of tomorrow, and then you watch the Jetsons, and then you watch Star Trek, that these were to inspire us and give us a blueprint of how we were to behave in the future to go to a better humanity. So it felt like, when I, was a little girl, that the future was supposed to be this great place. There was going to be no racism. There was going to be no sexism. There was not going to be like capitalist pigs trying to run, blah, blah, blah. And Eric, like, to your point, as we got further and further, or to like 1993, when the eugenics war, or I don't know, the whatever, we're not on the same timeline as that, right? So and this is like to a larger thing, where when I'll tell Carl, he was like, why haven't you watched the new Star Trek? Why haven't you watched this? Why are you not watching sci-fi as much anymore? Because I feel like that humanity is no longer has that shared goal to be better. Like, everything feels like a regression. It feels like, hey, let's take away, women's right to do this. Hey, let's take away this. What do you call? What did they just take away from the colleges?
Affirmative
action.
Affirmative action. Thank you. And it's like, let's roll back thing. We're being too progressive. We're progressing too fast. However, I would think it would be cool for them to do Star Trek to align with our universe. It could be cool, but then they'd have to take so many steps back. And then what is Star Trek then? Just I don't know. I like it. It seems fun when it first came out of your mouth, but then he would be doing a Republican equivalent of Star Trek stuff, and I'm not even Republican or like a
Yeah, you mean like a
conservative.
re-envisionist
Yeah,
version of Star Trek?
right. It was like, well, we used to have like I was saying how I liked Picard the first 2 seasons because we haven't seen that before and it pushes the story forward. But everybody just wanted to go back to First Contact. It's fine, but I don't really want to go back to where if I need an abortion that I'm going to use a wire hanger. Like I don't want to do that. You know what I mean? It's I don't know.
I don't want you to do that either.
Yeah.
Hold on. Before we continue, I think a new challenger has arrived.
No, I'm not. I'm not here.
Josh, are you there?
It's really funny. I didn't realize we'd be talking about abortion.
You came in, we were not this serious until you popped up. Like it was like so light.
Hold on. So listeners, you have no idea who this is because this person has never been on this podcast. It's just invading all of a sudden. Let me introduce everyone to Josh. I mean, listeners, this is Josh. He's actually potted with all of us. I mean, Carl, Kat, everyone,
Yeah.
Caleb, plenty, on the topic of Doctor Who and
I'm almost caught
James
up.
Bond and Sherlock Holmes and so many podcasts. But finally, he's here in Star Trek land.
Yeah, just finished the episode like 2 minutes ago.
Oh, and besides this current topic we're on in the episode, we've actually only discussed the first 5 minutes of the episode, aside from this.
We're about a third of the way into the episode so far, so
we barely touched the episode. We just kind of are starting with the end.
You guys started with the abortion part and
yes,
and the affirmative action part of this episode.
So Josh, you just caught us midstream, but let me get you even more caught up with what we're kind of talking about now as it pertains to this episode and this whole business with the Romulans messing with Earth timeline and what the writers are trying to do, apparently, the showrunner. I would equate this a little bit. It's a light version of what they were doing with like the Timeless Child
I knew you were going to say that.
in the newer series of Doctor Who.
I knew you were going to say that.
Where they were sort of like rewriting the origin of the Doctor for their own. Now, this is not exactly the same thing, but I feel like it's a lighter version of that. So what do you think, Josh, not being a hardcore Trekkie yourself?
Well, I love, you know what? It's great that I joined for this particular episode. The last one was good, but it's good that I came for this one because anything that has to do with time travel, I'm all about it.
Sweet. Oh, that is perfect.
So, yeah, it really truly is. Yeah, don't mess with this. I'm really concerned. I'm really concerned. I realize you have to move it into the the new year, you have to move it into the century, etc. But I hope they be careful here. I mean, but what's interesting is that the whole UAP thing happening right now in 2023, it does mesh with that pretty nicely. So maybe from that perspective, I just hope they use that instead of changing things from what is currently canon, because that's what messed up my favorite show.
Yeah, and the last thing I want to say before I give Carl a chance to chime in on all this, is there's been this issue ever since the Paramount CBS Star Trek shows started being a thing, which was they kept saying this is the Prime universe, this is the same universe you've always known, and I'm not going to bring up the weird things that came up in Discovery, mostly in like aesthetic and technology and whatever, but with Strange New Worlds, it seemed like they were kind of like compensating more in the correct direction, like making it kind of look more like TOS era, or you could kind of see if we keep kind of fudging things, we could get there eventually as the show continues. So it seemed like they're doing, like, in my opinion, like making good steps and strides into like making things feel more right. But then I feel like this, in terms of wanting to believe this is Prime, because I'm one of those people who wants so much to believe that this is Prime Universe. A lot of quote unquote hardcore old school fans of Star Trek, they just completely block this out. They don't accept this as Prime Universe, and that's how they get along with these new shows.
I'm that person.
I'm one of these people holding on, like this could still be Prime. This could still work.
Nope.
But when something like this happens, I'm just like, oh, great. Now you've taken my movement back, 10 years.
You got a wire hanger. All right, there you go.
Carl, what's your reaction? I know it's tough.
At its heart, Star Trek has always been a design for the aspirational future of humanity.
Yes.
Okay, right. So now, I've had this discussion on the side. I can't remember if we talked about it online or not, but the difference between fantasy and sci-fi is no matter what fantastical things you see in sci-fi, there is always a plausible bridge to get you there from where we are now, right? I mean, when you think about fantasy and magic, any old crap can happen. You can just pull things out of, wherever. It can happen. But if it's going to be science fiction, you got to have, even if it's a tenuous thread to physics and science and things that we know now. One of the big exciting things about Star Trek is that there was always that tenuous path to the future, whether it was the technology, whether it's the ships, whether it was the computers. You hear people from the modern era, like scientists and engineers and physicists right now, Neil deGrasse Tyson, those groups, talking about when they were kids watching Star Trek, seeing aspects of things that were from the show. And it's not, I'm just picking technologies because it's the easiest thing, but it also goes with ethics. It also goes with stories. But the point is, there was always some tenuous connection between humanity then and what they saw in Star Trek. It was supposed to be a guide to what humanity can be in the future. That was part of the inspiration behind Gene Roddenberry. It was never fantasy. It was never a hypothetical thing that was just out there. It was fun for us to watch in the abstract. It was supposed to be humanity in the future. That was the idea behind Star Trek. Now, humanity's slow, and we keep missing the marks. You watch For All Mankind and stuff like that. You're like, that could have been us. So, from the time when Star Trek was designed and invented with his Roddenberry and crew, they had an idea that this was a beacon for us and was supposed to be like true science fiction, a connection between humanity and what was possible in the future. And that connection is important to maintain because of that, either from the ethical standpoint, from the technological standpoint, from all of that. That path is supposed to be there to connect us to this, to make it more than fantasy. So whether it is technology, ethics, morality, whatever the deal is, originally Star Trek was supposed to have been humanity in the future that we are trying to aspire to. In the meantime, because as I mentioned, humanity is slow and we've been slipping, clearly we didn't meet our clone timeline, we didn't meet our space travel timeline, everything just getting all derailed. But the true idea behind Star Trek is supposed to be an aspirational goal for the future. So we still need a thread to connect us now with what we are seeing in the future of Star Trek, what is apparently our new modern version of Star Trek. We still need that connection to be there. Again, this was my beef with Enterprise, but that's another story. We'll go back to that. The point is Star Trek should be about the future and a goal that we're trying to achieve. So I think it is curious. I had not actually thought about it until you spelled it out in this episode, that this was a strategy on their part to try to reconnect our modern era with the aspirational timeline and future of Star Trek. To me, the modification of the timeline so that it syncs back up with modern humanity is less of a violation than to accept the original timeline as some fantasy humanity and then to continue to just look at Star Trek as an interesting story that borders more on fantasy than a possible future for humanity.
That's good. Okay. I see you.
So its goal from Gene Roddenberry's inception and from, in my heart, has always been a guide for what humanity should be in the future, and we should have that aspirational connection to it as science fiction, not fantasy, and the fact that they are updating the timeline to make that. And it's interesting, like I said, I did not know that this was a conscious effort on their part, that they were doing this. But to me, the fact that they are updating the timeline truly in the spirit of what Star Trek is all about, I'm more willing to accept that. That, all right, fine. We can slide the timeline, we can move stuff around, things that just keep this being a potential future that we have with some hope and some, goals for the future. I want to believe that it's that we're in the prime timeline, and this is not a bad out if we need a reason why things haven't happened.
I think that's a very interesting take. I look into all these Star Trek forums and things, and nobody has put it that way. So that is a very original hot take right there. Let me just say a couple more things, and then hopefully we can pretend like this isn't a sticking point for me in this episode. I mentioned that the seeds were actually planted in season 1 of Strange New Worlds about this business. It actually goes back to the first episode of Strange New Worlds, when Pike was, when they were dealing with that civilization that they had affected with warp technology, and when he was showing them like what was supposed to be archival footage of Earth. He mentioned that his Earth had like a bunch of issues and like war in the mid 21st century. Actually, some fans noticed back then, like, what is he talking about? Because it seemed like he was dating things a little bit later than established canon. So some people actually noticed that in season 1. And Spock has like a line somewhere in season 1 where he talks about the wars in the mid 21st century, which again is like a little bit later than it was already established. And people wondered if that was a mistake, but apparently we now know it was all by design, by the showrunners. It wasn't an accident. And the last thing I'll say about this, about why it bothers me or troubles me, is because when they did the J.J. Abrams movies and they had Prime Spock go back in time and Nero, and I accepted very clearly and easily, okay, fine, completely alternate timeline. Now Kirk and crew can go off and do their own things, but that in no way affects the Star Trek we already knew in TOS, etc. And that's fine. That's totally fine. But now with recent developments, I have this feeling that on the one hand, it explains why Discovery looks a little bit different, why Strange New Worlds looks a little bit different for the time. But I sort of feel like it's a mild wipe of the original TOS, etc. Because even though they keep calling this Prime, it's like it's the new Prime. It's new Coke. It's not Coca-Cola Classic. It's new Coke. It's the new Prime. It can't be the original Prime. And maybe I'm just a stickler like that, and maybe that's why it makes me feel uneasy, because I feel like this is a new timeline. Like, this is not Kelvin. This is not original. This is its own now third rail. But there we go. Let's see if we can try to put this aside, because aside from all this business that's been keeping me up all night for the last 5 days, aside from all this, I actually really, really like this episode. It's just this baggage. So back to the episode. We've barely gotten into Toronto, and there's I guess like a terrorist attack or bombing on this bridge, which I wasn't even sure if this was a real bridge or not in Toronto present day.
It's a Canadian bridge.
Right. Because I thought before they blew it up, I already thought this bridge looks really cool. Is this real? Apparently not real.
Canada doesn't have any bridges. We know that. That's completely made up. That is fantasy right there.
No, there's tons of bridges in Toronto, and they may have loosely taken a couple of design cues from certain bridges that do exist, but nothing is quite like this though in real life. But that's fine. We get now again. I like this compared to Picard season 2. This whole
here we go.
Our two future people, fish out of water thing in 2022. I thought for the most part they did it really well. Like, I was totally cool with the clothing store scene. Apparently we have to do like revolving doors in almost every Star Trek series, or it's been done in multiple series already. The gags with revolving doors. We tap into Kirk's chess expertise, which is a nice touch.
And the fact that you can make a lot of money in essentially winter in Toronto.
Well, they didn't go to a pool hall and do a pool shark, so that was different at least.
Yeah, I almost thought he was going to sell his glasses, to be honest. But no, it was a nice touch though, because it was something that Kirk. I mean, it's an established ability that he had from his first episode, from William Shatner's first episode as Kirk, is when that was established. I thought this kooky conspiracy theory character was interesting.
What?
He's talking about Romulan Meg Griffith.
Yeah,
that's what he's talking about.
Okay, thank you.
But before we knew she was Romulan, when she was just someone wearing a skull cap, taking photos, and then she's talking about how she believes in aliens. I actually thought it was kind of interesting. Again, made me think of New Who.
Yeah.
Made me think of real life, actually, at this moment.
Oh, yeah, that too. And yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, for sure. I watched Day of the Daleks today. That's so crazy.
What? Why would you do
What is wrong with you?
I'm telling you right now, like the concept of, the temporal paradox, the discussion with Kirk about how he's going to essentially lose his friends.
Yeah.
And lose everything that he knows, and still getting him to agree to help and so on and so forth. I think that they threw the fact that his brother actually lives into that. Maybe that sort of helped him make that decision.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, definitely. Major point.
Yeah.
Major plot point, for sure.
So from that, I love the concept of, different timelines. We live with this stuff every day, except we don't get to mess with it. Unless we live in a simulation, of course, which...
You mean we live with, thinking about, if things could have gone another way?
Timeline. Our timeline is our timeline. And physics basically says that there are potentially multiple timelines.
Right.
That there is that we're having this conversation right now, but in another timeline, I started exactly at the same time as you guys did.
Right.
Well, we did. There was another recording of it. So
exactly.
Yeah,
exactly.
Absolutely. In another timeline, this podcast is for profit, actually. Absolutely.
I want to live that timeline. That's the case. No, but I appreciate that. That's the part that I really appreciate. That. And the other thing is, and again, I don't want to miss to go to the end of the episode so quickly, but I just want to say the concept that they actually have temporal soldiers, if you will.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
And they're all in the future. They're not now. And, coming back to this particular timeline to say, yeah, you can't say anything about this. This is the whole concept of time travel and the fact that,
Oh, yeah.
You know what I mean?
Okay.
I
thought you were talking about the Romulans at first, but no, you're talking about the gray suits.
Yeah, I'm talking. Yeah, exactly.
Didn't they do that in Loki too? Right.
Oh, that's absolutely what the Loki show is about.
Okay, yeah,
for sure. But yeah, I don't know how much Trek you've watched, Josh, but I mean, there's
recently a lot.
Wow.
Well, yeah, but I mean, in the past, in the 90s and whatnot, because they definitely established there was time agents and there's seems like more than one time agency that we've been
time agents. Oh God, jeez. Borrowing from Doctor Who as usual.
That's
yeah, they totally did. I'm sorry, they did.
Well, yeah, and so yeah, these gray suits have appeared in the Star Trek universe before, but there's been others. It's not really clear if there's I guess there's multiple time agencies. That hasn't really been fully sketched out. But there's definitely humans from the future who come back and try to make sure things are copacetic.
They're time lords.
Yep. Right. I knew you were going there.
Well, if you think about the original series of Star Trek and the one with Terry Garr and what's his name?
Gary Seven?
Gary Seven. I mean, you don't get more Doctor Who than that.
That's true.
It was literally US's take on the concept. I mean, it was Who and a companion. They would travel through time, correcting. Yes. It was literally our take on Doctor Who back then. They were trying to make a spin-off series from that.
Yeah, it was a soft pilot for a new show that they never produced.
But the point is they've managed to have time agents throughout the entire history of Star Trek. So it's consistent. This is all working out. This is makes sense.
Yeah, I mean, look, you know what? Actually, when they got really near the black hole, I complained to Eric about this in one of the previous episodes of Strange New Worlds. It got really close to a black hole.
Yeah.
Oh, season 1, episode 4, I think.
Yeah, I mean, basically, like that would have sent them ahead by 500 years or whatever if they'd truly gotten near that black hole. So. They don't get it all right. Let me just put it that way.
Yeah,
it's just like it. That really bugged me. It actually bugged me. They didn't.
I still need to go back to that episode.
I was curious to see because I thought more was going to come of that. Also, they tried to do some slight time dilation in terms of targeting, but for exactly what you're talking about with the proximity of the black hole, the fact they're always dancing around. Anytime Enterprises go dance around black holes, time mess happens. Yes. So they let them off easy in that episode. They really, I was really expecting more to have happened, but
yeah, they would have gone ahead at least. I mean, I don't know the number of years, but it would have been several years in the future if they did that right. Anyway, I had to bring that up in this because I wasn't on your episode for episode 4.
For sure. Oh yeah, if perhaps the next time you join us from the beginning, we'll get more of your hot takes on the previous Strange New World episodes. Because we got a bunch of cats on this episode as it was. So more about this Kirk, Paul Wesley Kirk. We saw the actor in season 1, obviously, finale. And of course, that still wasn't Prime Kirk because that was in an alternate future timeline. And then this Kirk is obviously from another dimension as well, or timeline. So still not Prime Kirk. Okay, fine. And we already discussed how he definitely feels different from William Shatner.
Or have we discussed it, Eric?
We have not.
Well, that could have been our alternate timeline episode.
That was our alternate timeline that we
was
did.
it?
Yeah. Well, yeah, but I mean,
okay. Well, feel free to recreate that moment now for the listeners.
Okay. Well, I think about Paul Wesley. I watched him. First saw him on Vampire Diaries. Yes, I watched that show, and he was cool. It was good. He was okay. I'm not really feeling him as Captain Kirk. I think Captain Kirk is much more flirty and funny. I think Chris Pine was a good Kirk, but I still wanted more. But Paul Wesley is even, it sounds so negative, but less Kirk than Chris Pine was. And I just want, I don't know, Paul Wesley seems to not upstanding because Kirk was upstanding. He's just,
well, yeah, he's young but mature.
Yeah, and Kirk, I mean, he was just so like I would have dated him, air quote. You know what I mean? Like he could have got that, but Paul Wesley. Okay. I'm not saying that he couldn't, but
everyone get ready to name all the characters who could have got you. On
okay, stop it.
Became just the whatever podcast,
I'm just saying. I mean, I guess Paul Wesley too, but like Kirk, he didn't mind. Like he would flirt with everything. It was a wall right there. He would flirt with it. It was just like he had a funniness and a charisma. Then he could be serious. But Paul Wesley just seems like, I don't know. He doesn't have that. He is playful, but it's still not like the happy playful that Kirk was.
Yeah, he's definitely, as Kirk as we have known prior, he's much more reserved. Yeah, and he seems more. He actually almost feels like a melding of classic Kirk with Pike in not Anson Mount Pike, but Pike from the original. Pilot episode, The Cage, which is like a leading man from the 1960s. What I wanted to say with seeing Paul Wesley's take on Kirk in this episode, so I really didn't feel him at all in the role in the previous episode. As much as I liked the finale of season 1, I didn't really feel like that was Kirk. He's definitely different, as we've said. That being said, this was the moment of this version of Kirk starting to grow on me, was him in this episode.
I can agree.
This was my first time to like start appreciating him and thinking he's cool, even though he's different, like cool in a different way from our established Kirk. And so this is me starting to appreciate this actor in the role because he seemed much more fleshed out to where I felt like I was starting to get to know him more in this, whereas I didn't really have a chance. And it was because of the nature of the story that we saw the alternate Kirk in earlier. So yeah, I just wanted to say that.
I'm kind of with Kat that I don't feel the Kirk of him. I recognize the character that he's playing. I recognize the placeholder that he is, maintaining, and the importance of having Kirk in the story. But I do not feel, the playfulness of Captain Kirk in him. He just seems too formal, too formal. So I'm trying to get with it, and I'm also trying to appreciate, this is going to be a different Kirk,
right?
But I don't feel it, and that kind of bothers me. We took one of our asides. Here's yet another random aside. The guy that played Solo in the movie Solo, I didn't think he looked like Harrison Ford a lot, very much at all. But there were moments, the way that he stood, the way he carried himself. I couldn't see in his face Harrison Ford, but I could feel, Han Solo. Or there was something that he was doing.
I never felt
that he managed to. There were moments that he managed to do that. I don't feel that with this guy's Kirk, and I mean, I am appreciating him for who he is as the new Kirk, but I haven't gotten the moment where I feel Kirk at all yet with him. And like I said, that's just my take on him. He's doing a great job, he's a fine actor and all that stuff, but I have not felt the flash. I appreciate him and I appreciate what he's doing here, but I have not. There hasn't been a moment where I was like, there's Kirk. There he is.
And one wonders if the writers are playing 3D chess with us, because we finally meet the quote unquote prime Kirk for a brief moment on the FaceTime at the very end of the episode. That's our actual introduction to supposedly prime Kirk. Who knows? Maybe the writers are playing 3D chess, and when we finally see that actual Kirk in action, maybe he'll be more Kirk-like to our eyes, and maybe it'll be one of those situations you see in a lot of other time travel sci-fi where when Lon really gets to know the real Kirk, she's like, whoa, you're not like the Kirk I knew.
I mean, he'd have to be drunk to pull it off because he just don't seem like he could get up there. I mean, Jesus, this guy. I mean, I don't know. Kirk was borderline inappropriate, but he was just so charismatic. You're like, oh my God, just stop. And then you twirl your hair and you go on. But, this guy, I wasn't twirling my hair.
Yeah, I mean, I agree with Eric. Like, you have so much leeway if you have this alternate universe Kirk. Like, you can just do whatever you want with him. And this is not the version that we know and love. So, maybe that's better in many ways, is to see what a Kirk looks like in that alternative universe. It would have been, again, like, I think it would have been better had it been like somebody who we would recognize just a little bit more, right? And his first sort of foray is this sort of fake version or a version that didn't survive, etc. So,
well, yeah, I'll take it, Josh, because we've seen, like Eric was saying, we have seen two versions of Kirk, each one from an alternate timeline. So, maybe, like you said, we've got that leeway, like Eric was talking about. Maybe when we see our prime Kirk, there will be more joy, more playfulness there. So, hey, he's always already offering to tell stories about Sam over a drink. So, maybe.
I got a question. What's with the Pike light episodes to start this season? I mean, it's like you saw Pike for like a minute in this one. You saw Pike for a minute in the first episode.
Anson Mount was on holiday.
Look, you got to compare that to other modern recent Trek that we have had, which are focused only on like the three main characters, and everyone else has been abandoned. So I think they are really trying to develop the. And to be fair, we have not seen a lot of La'an. You know, she's got maybe 3 episodes in Strange New Worlds.
Yeah.
So it's welcome, but yes, I've noticed that there has been we've been, not been focusing on Pike a lot.
I like Carl's notion. They're playing against the other new Treks out there. I love that notion. That said, there's definitely a vocal sentiment out there of people who are like, Anson Mount's my favorite thing on Strange New Worlds. Why the hell are we not getting him? And I feel the pain, but I'm definitely in both camps. Mm-hmm. I definitely love me some Anson Mount, but I also love this highlighting of other characters at the same time.
Yeah, just not a lot of Enterprise stuff. Like Strange New Worlds. We're not seeing a lot of Strange New Worlds so far in season 2. I mean, it could change next week. I'm just saying, like, you had the first episode, mostly a Spock episode, right? And then you had the courtroom episode. And this one was, time dilation.
Yeah, I agree, except I would just amend it and say it was a Spock, but then also Chapel / Omega episode, the first one, because that was kind of like strong character moments for them as well. But anyway, yes, but y'all are correct. But of course, I mean, this is really, the La'an episode. And let me talk about her character for a moment, because she was not one of my favorites generally in season 1. She seemed like her main character point was, of course, her childhood trauma with the Gorn, and that was the big thing with her. And then the bit about her last name was just sort of like a weird afterthought that wasn't really addressed in season 1. And she just definitely didn't seem like she may have been the least likable character in season 1 by design, but like I don't think too many people had her as their fan favorite when we just only had season 1, and she certainly wasn't my fan favorite. But boy, oh boy, has the paradigm shifted for me. I don't think I can take on another female heroine in my Strange New Worlds fandom because Chapel has already been plenty for me to take on in Strange New Worlds. And now I have to carve out space for La'an, because all of a sudden she is so on my radar after this. I think it's phenomenal what they did with her character. Seeds were planted like in the like Una episodes, where the La'an character was dealing with the whole Illyrian business and her own augment business, like internally. And you'd already seen in previous episodes how she's definitely not a people person on the ship, and everyone considers her cold and distant. But man, I really, really fell hard for this character in this particular episode, and the way the story unfolds. I was already perking up when they had like the quiet scene at night in the hotel, where they both are kind of like thinking about each other without ever meeting face to face. I already perked up, like the little ship / rom-com side of me was like, wait a second, what's going on? Yellow alert! I feel feelings, and they're making me tingle inside.
We don't get enough of your rom-com.
Yeah, I don't want any of that at all.
And the way it developed further, like the little. Oh man, I was in it. I was totally in for it. I love it.
You like some hot dogs, Eric?
Yes. I've never wanted a hot dog so bad.
Yeah, I was not there.
They didn't put any mustard on it or anything.
It
bothered me.
That was amazingly plain.
Who wants to have a plain hot? Anyway, never mind. I'm just saying.
That's how you eat them at Costco. Well, I do.
Other thoughts on the development of the La'an character at this point?
What do you say? Because I'm going to sleep talking about her. I still feel
I'm saying that she was completely not on my radar as a fan favorite on this cast or whatever, but all of a sudden she has completely arrived for me in this show.
Yeah, nope, not me.
Okay.
I mean, they kind of established her in season 1, and I think we're supposed to think that she's on a journey, and so this whole putting everybody on their own little journey is so 21st century kind of television. But yeah, I mean, it appears that she's on her own little journey now, which is fun. I mean, did I fall in love with her in this episode? No, I don't.
No, not
think
me.
I fell in love with her in this episode.
Oh wow!
But I think she's clearly incredibly capable, and they made a really big deal out of the fact that she's incredibly capable. The whole scene with the doctor and not the doctor, not doctor. No,
we get you.
But the whole scene, where she's sparring and stuff like that,
yes,
it's clear that we understand her capabilities and her intelligence, and that's been really pushed very heavily over season 1 and till today.
Agreed.
She obviously knows how to get where she needs to get, even when there's no shot of getting it, if you will. I mean, I don't think you're in a lot of danger if you go and steal clothes, but at the same time, kind of brilliant, right? I mean, just this is what she is. She's.
By the way, that was taken right out of the Madonna movie, Material Girl. Yeah, have anyone seen that movie?
I don't think I've seen it.
No.
I saw Suddenly Seeking Susan, and I ended
Yeah,
up
that's the one
I think Material Girl came out like in 88 or 87 or something. I remember we rented it, and I remember that was like a plot point like early in the movie that I can't remember if they were in a music store and her love interest was there and she was gonna like take all these cassette tapes or something, and she slipped some in another patron's like purse or something, so that they set off the alarm, and then she's like made out with all her music, and I was like, there it is, the Material Girl reference.
Yep. Apparently, the writer of the show was a big fan of Madonna. Yep.
Yep.
Yeah.
I checked that off my Strange New Worlds bingo card.
Okay.
Well, see, there you go. There's proof that the actual we're in the same timeline. Lon watched the very same movie, and she's a Madonna fan, and picked it up from old videos. So
Wow.
That would have been really great, though. Like if she had said, "Yeah, Madonna did this in the Material Girl movie."
Yeah, no.
That would have been awesome. Like,
I see you, writers. I see what you're doing.
I studied 20th century cinema, and I've seen that. It's
the giant.
Isn't that much different than the Dolly Parton stuff? So I mean, I guess it could work.
All right, that was Orville, but still, we get the idea. Yeah.
Oh, that was Orville?
That was
Damn
Orville.
it, those two are stuck in my mind together. Shit.
Okay, it's a good thing.
Yeah, that was a good thing.
Wow, I didn't know I was going to be on another island on this one.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. No, I got you back. I thought it was good to see her. Good to see her becoming more interesting in this episode. She has sort of been in the background, and she's been kind of stoic. And I agree, not particularly that likable in the past. I mean, again, having a character who's purely pain driven and making that the heart of the character. From a dramatic standpoint, we can see this, but even Strange New Worlds has moved away from that being everything about the character. So finally, we get to see a little bit more than just pain. Well done.
Yeah. Apparently, like the actress Christina Chong is like having her moment right now, because I didn't know she was a singer and dancer in real life as well, and she like had like a major release of like her musical single like the day after this episode aired. She has like this single out there called Twin Flames.
Wow. The name of it. Okay.
She's the Billy Piper of Star Trek Strange New Worlds.
Oh God.
Yeah. There you go.
Yeah, the music video just dropped, and so she got all this attention because of the music and because of this episode, like at the same time. It's probably planned.
I mean, she was wasn't she kind of playful in the episode with Una where they were doing like the...
Yes, that was like her first human moment, if you will.
For both of them, though, right? Because the ladies have been rather formal up until that point. So yeah.
Yes, but yep, I'm a new fan, and I think she's fantastic. And she is already, and I noticed it again this episode, She has the most amazing braids and hairstyles.
Those braids are tight. Those braids are tight. I gotta admit, as a dude, I'm like, wow, that is crisp what she's got going on with those braids. So
yeah, it's like very Klingon inspired.
Impressive.
Okay, we're talking about hair on this podcast, guys. We're talking about.
Hey, listen. We started with abortion. We went on to hair. So
Okay. Well, yeah, you know what? Okay, all right, I'll give it.
Yeah, her braids are tight.
Now there's the car scene with the Dodge Challenger and Kirk drive. Now, again, a million times better than the car scene in Picard season 2.
I wasn't even going to bring it up.
Why are we even doing this?
I was trying not to even go there.
I'm not gonna. I'm not gonna bring up
my god,
that Buster Keaton gem. I'm not gonna bring that up.
Oh my god. Why?
Yeah, Josh, I know you haven't seen Picard season 2, and you should never watch it.
Yeah, no.
But they go to 2022 Los Angeles, and hijinks ensue.
I bet it did. I mean, they have to have one of those in every sort of Star Trek season.
Yes.
You have to go back to the Nazis, or you have to go back to the 20th century in some way, shape, or form. I mean,
Yes.
even the movies dabbled in that.
Certainly. Mm-hmm. And there was actually a weird, not weird. There was a little callback with Kirk starting in reverse to the mobster episode of TOS.
Yes.
Because Kirk was driving something that resembled a Model T. It wasn't really a Model T.
Wait a minute, Eric, are you sure? I think it was a Model T, definitely.
This is an ongoing meme with me and Josh.
Oh my goodness!
But it was more like a 20s, early 30s car, and in that episode, Kirk is like, "Yeah, I can drive," and he puts it in reverse to start. Nice little callback to that. But anyway, the chase itself is whatever. It's fine. But the business with the cop or the police officer when they get pulled over, that was a little bit. That was got a little bit too. They had a little bit of plot armor to get out of that.
That was suspect at the very least. Like this woman was enough to say, "I'm going to put this on what? I'm going to put this on Twitter." So you don't want to show
streaming live. She was
streaming live. Yeah. No.
It was a little on the nose.
Now, and somebody else somewhere else where I read, someone pointed out that, hey, a terrorist attack just happened in Toronto, and you think cops are just going to be letting people go?
No.
Like, suspicious things in downtown of the same town? Yeah, that cop is a little bit too chill for being in a post 9/11 type situation.
Yeah, no shit. Yeah, absolutely.
I do have a question, and it might be a stupid one. It probably is, but why is Khan's race changed so often?
Wait, when is it? It's only changed once that I know of.
What do you mean?
Well, you have to explain yourself.
Okay, no, I'm thinking about two different people. I'm sorry. Okay, my bad. Because I'm thinking about Khan. So the original actor, Ricardo
Montalban,
he was Hispanic, perhaps?
Yeah.
The actor is, yes.
Yes.
And then we have other Khan, which was that
Benedict Cumberbatch?
Nobody counts him as Khan.
Yeah, nobody does.
I don't know why are you even bringing that up. No one even counts him as Khan, so skip that one.
I was going to say, my bad. Montalban was 1982. There were no races in 1982.
There you go. See, that's how it worked.
All right, okay. And then the kid, he's what?
Indian.
Was it Southeast Asian? Yeah.
Yes, correct. Okay, so Kat, here's the deal. Going back to TOS, and the original introduction of Khan and Ricardo Montalban, even though the actor is definitely of Latino heritage, he was playing a Southeast Asian
right
from the get-go.
Hence, you have to look at the shade of his makeup to figure out what they were trying to pull off. So it's true. That's where they were going back then,
and that's why his name is Noonien Singh.
Exactly,
the Singh part.
So I just thought they were doing something else, and I had no idea that it was. So what is this brown face? I'm not trying to make it offensive or anything. I'm just like,
it was brown face, even though he is brown to begin with,
right?
Light brown.
It's a combination of 1967, I think, and 1982, and how they just couldn't hire an actor that fit into that role.
Okay.
Yeah. He was like all skin naturally, but he was browned up for the TOS episode.
Nice.
All right.
Well done.
Okay.
Well done, TOS.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's where he has the sing in his name.
Right.
And they even play with that at one moment because this Kirk in the episode, he's never heard of Khan Noonien Singh. So he actually says Khan Noonien Sung,
Yeah.
which is the damn Brent Spiner character in Generations.
Yeah, oh, that's why I got confused because I was going to name him. I was like, wait, are you trying to confuse him with Ben? Okay,
and so they were kind of playing off that joke that why did those names so similar? And I don't even want to bring this up because I hate to keep bringing up Picard season 2.
I think you love
Remember Noonien Sung in that episode at the end? He brings out that Khan Manila folder.
Well, of course. I mean, remember it was the same connection from Enterprise, the TV series.
I get it, but the point is that he's in 2022 as well. Is he like zooming back to Canada to check on things or to be part of the Foundation?
You mean like Zoom, like the tool that you use for like video conferencing?
I meant Zoom in an airplane.
Okay, I'm just asking for a friend. All right.
It's just weird that Picard season 2 is happening in the same year as this episode.
Well,
and that there are some weird, tenuous, loose connections.
Yep.
That's happening at the same. Never mind.
Because one would think because what's her name? I don't even remember her name anymore. Remember, there's a Romulan agent in Picard season 2 who has technology that can detect time anomalies. One would think that she might pick up on this other future Romulan in Toronto, but let's not even think about it because we know.
Okay. Look, the timey-wimey aspect of that is
Love it.
She would not have been able to detect that because this was a timeline that was pinched off before that happened, and therefore it would not be on her radar. Remember, the time agents are only aware of variations from their own timeline, and it is their job to stop them. So
you are correct, but to me everything's up in the air now because now I wonder if the Picard situation was in the quote-unquote original timeline, or was it in a timeline affected by whatever shenanigans are happening in this episode? I don't know.
Well, you're making the distinction. And again, we're not necessarily agreeing that has happened. This is likely still the same timeline. That's what they want us to believe.
Right. So yeah. But anyway, there's a car chase.
Actually, Eric, it's an alternate media, another book or something like that, or a comic book, where they just they mess with the timelines again, and so it all fits together, just to make it canon.
Oh, that's in the Star Trek Little Start audios.
Oh,
the animated. It's the animated.
It happened in Lower Decks, I think.
Yeah. There you go.
Okay.
Oh boy. Let's move on to Vermont, if we can.
What's about Vermont?
How did they get by the border? How did they get by the border?
They bribed.
Look, they had no money. They busted. Somebody took a cab for the part of that. I don't know how they managed to get down there and back in a reasonable amount of time. We're letting that slide.
They got time. It's an 8-hour drive from Toronto.
Assuming you can get through back and forth through customs.
Right, but they had a throwaway line where they paid off some border agents,
which would never happen. But go on.
I know, I know those Mounties. They didn't accept it.
That's really dumb. That would never happen.
I get it.
They don't have any ID at all on them. Nothing.
Yep, that wouldn't fly.
I just went with it.
They don't have a psychic wallet.
Yeah, exactly. That's what they would freaking need.
Why are you trying to start with this?
Psychic paper?
They need some psychic paper. I mean, just the only thing missing from this episode is like meeting Doctor Who and coming, and having him there for this whole thing so that he could get them across the border. Never mind. I'm not going.
They get to Vermont because conveniently
they caught an Uber.
We got to learn these key aspects of Pelia at the very opening of the episode, that she was in the archaeology department in Vermont and whatever. And so how do y'all feel about this whole Pelia business? Because there's some fans out there who are like, oh, why are they just making like Guinan 2.0? Why can't they just create like a new character?
The funniest part of her is that she's not acting. That's her.
It is her. She's like that.
She thinks she's literally Star Trek
she's like
universe.
that on everything. She's like that on everything.
She is an alien. Carol Kane is an alien.
Yeah,
I mean that she's not acting. So, if you're asking like, how could she be that weird? That's who she is,
and I love it. I love her.
Oh, I think she's fittingly weird in the role.
Love it. Yeah, I love it. I love her.
I love the concept of the whatever it is, the thing in the watch, because that's like a real thing. That's like legitimately a real thing.
Yep, physics, tritium.
Oh, like the metal, and then okay.
Yeah, that's like legitimately true. I love that callback. That was really smart of the writer to put that in, because that's legit.
Hey,
I didn't know it was. I'm glad to know.
Sci-fi, not magic. That's why we like Star Trek. Yeah.
So my reaction to her was that, so every time they bring up some new stuff that I don't really recognize, and I can't tell that if it's like new Trek or old, or I break out my Star Trek encyclopedia that I bought in like 1999, 2000 or something, and to me, if it's never in that book, they have some explaining to do. So I looked, and her race or her species of people is not mentioned. So at first I was thinking, oh, is this another name for Gaian's race, right? Or what's happening, because it feels just like that. And then I asked Eric, like, why they have like the entirety of Star Trek. Why would they create a new race when they have so many others they could just pull from? And then Eric's like, they have a plan, and like, what?
Is that what I said? I barely remember that conversation.
Why not? Well, I'm just
saying, it was like, it's so similar, and it wasn't different enough for them to be like, we are the Jem'Hadar, we are the Hirogen. Like, dude, y'all basically the same. With what? So
look, to be fair, the encyclopedia is now 23 years old.
You know what? A lot of people are 23 years old.
No, okay. I think I know what I meant with my response. I hardly remember we had the conversation. I think what I meant by they have a plan, I am guessing, putting faith in that we will learn more about Pelia and the Lathanite race, as it were. Mm-hmm. And I'm assuming there's going to be some more quirks of the race that we will find out at a later time. Like, maybe they have the ability to change their appearance, or have some other sort of non-human powers or something. And I'm assuming this will play into like her character arc. But this is just me assuming. I don't know anything special. I don't have any inside information. That's just what I'm thinking.
I feel like they introduced her only for this to do this episode. Just, I mean, you know what I mean? Like,
I should be killed off in the next episode.
Yeah, I'd love it. No. But the whole stealing thing. Maybe it's like,
City of Death.
Yeah, well, they did bring up the Louvre.
Yes.
I don't know. I don't know.
Yeah, I know that reference. Hey, that's nice.
And I, you know what? Actually, that brings up something that I laughed at in this episode when they were talking about socialism and capitalism.
Oh yeah.
It was actually clever. It didn't ring any bells with me. It just was it was clever the way they brought it up. It's like, if we ever go back to capitalism, at least I'll have this.
I totally agree. Yeah,
I thought that was actually well placed.
It was.
Yes, I totally agree.
Bunker in Vermont. Be prepared.
And I like that. What she said, a philosophy class, or what class? Archaeology. And it was the name of her store or something. I was like, oh god.
Yeah. It looks good on paper.
It took them no time at all.
Yeah.
And I like the recognition. I mean, flash forwarding to the end of the episode, where when Lon comes back to the Prime Bridge, and Pelia is starting to get dressed down by the captain in number 1, and of course Pelia probably recognizes the clothing, the outfit that Lon's wearing, and it probably all snaps in her brain, what's going on. I still wonder, though, if Pelia had any thoughts when she first met Lon, whenever that was in the show. Because, I don't even want to bring up time travel again, but I still wonder, did Pelia know this in episode 1, season 1?
Right.
Or is she just part of the rewritten world of this timeline, this episode?
Right. Yeah, that's.
I don't know, but I want to know.
I don't know either.
I don't.
Because I almost wish there was like a line where like, why do you think I joined the ship in the first place? Because as soon as I saw y'all, I realized like this is where I need to be.
Yep.
That's a good point. That's a really good point because like that's been like not explained. It's sort of been just, shoehorned in that she just joined for no apparent reason, except that she just wanted to join, and so it could be that. But also, I think she did know already when she was talking about the artifacts that she had.
Yeah, that's what I was kind of thinking too, but it's not clear.
No, you know what I think? I think she's a secret Ferengi.
Oh my lord!
I was going to bring up Ferengi actually because we were talking about the.
I thought it was Frankie in the first episode when they mentioned Prophet.
Yeah, because she she had that comment about capitalism and everything, and
right.
And the fact that she's stolen those items and there's an economic scenario there, it felt very Ferengi.
And the way she speaks, she kind of sounds like Moogie from DS9, right?
Oh God,
that's Moogie from DS9. But somebody's going to be mad that she's not naked walking around.
So. Oh my gosh.
Can we go back to abortions and
okay,
and affirmative action?
Oh dear.
I like her. I'm glad they added her. She's good.
Let's talk about our Romulan and her disagreement with La'an at the door. That's a pretty key moment there, where basically she has detected the importance of Khan, and is trying to break in and using them to sneak in there. What do you think about the confrontation between them in that moment?
Well, first of all, I felt like I should have seen it coming, but I didn't see it coming.
Yeah.
So, I mean, with the reveal of her being like a double agent or whatever the case,
yep,
I did not catch on.
Yeah.
I should have, but I had my defenses down, and I was like, oh, crap. Oh, yeah. And she even kind of looks Romulan, even though she doesn't have the ears. She just has that look.
You thought she looked kind of Romulan?
Yes.
I thought she looked more like, University of Maine. You know what I mean? To me, like, that was the best disguise ever.
Well, Maine-ites do have that Romulan look. It's often been said.
Okay. No. I thought that there was a lot of, I'll call it exposition. Yeah. Between their dialogue, between their discussion at that time, but it was mercifully done. I mean, right?
Yes.
We can imagine how awkward and bad that could have been, because there was an awful lot of information that was exchanged, story context, history between all of that came out in that little discussion that the ladies were having in that moment, and it managed to be interesting, tense, and seamless. It was not preachy and slow, and it didn't feel like exposition, although it was exposition. I mean, there was a ton of information that was articulated in that little brief dialogue between them back and forth, while at the same time being a moment of a bit of tension. So, well done.
I agree. I agree they did that right. That's a good point. That's a really good point.
I totally agree with what you said.
They could very easily have made that very tiresome, but they did it really well.
Or Bond villainy.
Yeah, or Bond villainy. Yeah, for sure.
I totally agree, but I will say too that I thought Kirk was going to pull like a double bluff.
Yeah,
like
of course.
Like I knew he was shot, obviously, which I didn't expect. But okay, he's shot now. But I thought he was still going to somehow at least live a little bit longer and save Lon, like when they got to like the underground tunnels. I thought he was going to jump in and save her, and then perhaps then die after that. Because I just thought it was weird because Kirk is this guy who just, he's like a cat with like multiple lives. Always seems like
he always breaks the rules.
And I know it's not the original Kirk. I get it. So I was a little bit taken aback that
once again, this is not the Kirk that we know, and we needed. There should have been something else for him there. So there should be something that a trick, something there that would have tipped that, even in death, that would have tipped us off that this is the Kirk that we know. It was a beautiful moment, but we didn't. Once again, we didn't get that. But
yeah, it's kind of like he's stupid. Like he wasn't needed
Yes.
at all. Like, you could have very easily shot him.
He was the romantic interest. And
Yes,
so,
he was for he was for Lon's character arc.
Yep.
He was also to get the money and
Yep.
the hot dog.
Yeah.
Because that's what dudes need to do: get you food, give you money.
But that's the thing. Like
And to give you the hot dog.
He was incidental.
Yeah.
I love
that. That's what's bothering everybody on this call on this podcast is that he was incidental.
Well, they know how women feel. I love it.
Yeah, well, look, I totally recognize that this is what women have gone through all along. So that's not my issue. Is he just didn't feel like Kirk. But the fact that he was incidental, that is something that I recognize that women have dealt with for the longest time, and this was La'an's episode, so I give him that. But
this version of Kirk was incidental, and that's why he got killed and was stupid and saying, "Yeah, just go ahead, shoot me."
Yeah, that was very.
I mean, come on,
very un-Kirk-like.
It was. I can't say I was shocked because at the end of the day, like it would have been crazy for her not to have killed Kirk there, like it just wouldn't have made any sense if she had not just shot Kirk right there. She didn't need him. She needed her. And at the end, here's the other thing. Like, she could have shot La'an and just used her hand to open the door, right?
Sure.
Right.
Yeah.
Like, so while that dialogue worked, it's like, why did she even bother having the dialogue? Why not just shoot her and use her hand?
It's true. It was, it's a delicate slope. Like I said, I was calling out and appreciating the exposition because, they are doing something there. La'an didn't even have to say anything about her past because apparently, the Romulan Meg hadn't put it together that they were related, that she was related to Khan. So once again, her going, I am actually the descendant of Khan, didn't have to go there. Still flowed though. It still flowed.
Yeah, she didn't like overhear that discussion or anything, or
right.
Yeah,
right.
I mean, that's a pretty gaping hole in this whole thing.
Yeah. Well, like I said, we're letting it go. We're letting it go. It had an emotional impact, and we will trade that off.
It was good. It was good. It was entertaining. I mean, it wasn't perfect by any stretch, but it was entertaining.
So what do we think once Sarah is dispatched and La'an is there, and it's like a weird reverse do I have the right moment to
back to Doctor Who
to reference Genesis of the Daleks, where in that situation, for those who aren't schooled up in their classic Doctor Who, it's that whole Hitler conundrum, like would you kill Hitler when he was a child type of situation. But of course in this situation Hitler must live, or the Daleks must live.
Well, Eric, a lot of worlds came together because of their hatred of Khan.
Right.
A lot of people became close to other people because of their hatred of Khan. So you don't want to ruin that.
Right.
And before what you were going to say earlier, Eric, it was like you were saying this wouldn't be that because of this, so maybe the U.S. wouldn't have been the U.S. because of Hitler. Is that where you're going to...
Well, yeah, I mean, it's kind of implied, yes. Exactly. Maybe, and then of course, La'an has the further situation of she could also potentially end her own existence, but would it be a worthy sacrifice?
She wouldn't have ended her own existence. They gave her the out, but still, yes.
No.
Right. Yeah, she had the device. Right.
Right.
Oh, right. That was supposed to be the temptation.
Right.
It was that you could resume your life in the future and no longer have this shadow of your ancestry.
There you go.
Right.
It's a feeble temptation because she never could get back to her own timeline, but that's what she was trying for.
It was feeble to me, too, Carl. It just kind of rang hollow.
To manage a timeline must be the most complex, difficult, almost impossible thing to do. And we've seen it so many times in fiction that everything ended up exactly the same way as expected. But it's an impossibility. You can't do it. Like, something will change. Something has to change.
They touched on an interesting concept, and we've heard it before in other time travel, series, where there is a gravitational path to a default future. In other words, there is a path that if you just left stuff alone, it kind of gravitates towards this. They talk about it in Quantum Leap. They talk about it in Star Trek. They talk about it in Doctor Who.
Father's Day.
Where there are these permutations where even when they don't quite get things right, the gravity of history will push it back and kind of self-correct. So what they, even with Loki and all the others here, whenever there are, these bureaus of time management, they are struggling to knock these teeny buds out as soon as possible because, like you said, it is impossible to manage a branchy, crazy, complex thing. So all they know how to do is if there's a slight variation, knock it down because it's too complex to try to manage all of these wiry complexities and whatnot. So every time we see, our time agents and whatnot in Star Trek, and when we see it in Loki or whatever, they are holding to the river's path of time. Whether the agents are super effective or not, they're just trying to keep along the natural flow. Because, we've seen plenty of episodes where our time travelers are not that competent, but they get close enough and then it, goes right back onto the main path of what's supposed to be there. So we can assume that there is a path to time that is supposed to be the true path that Starfleet is successful and that everything works out on. There have been these little mess ups and not quite getting it there, but the gravity, the inertia of time manages to nudge them back onto the proper path, and therefore the computers, the path of the future, has some kind of a default flow that they're trying their best to adhere to. But so again, you remember the exposition. Once again, they managed to sneak this in. We're talking about times and branches and alternate universes, and still they managed to get this little line in there that says that, it's frustrating. I can't seem to divert this Starfleet time of path because it keeps edging back toward the way it was. And I'm assuming she meant not just because the time crew is trying to keep it that way. So maybe there's something, a fate, a gravity, an inertia that is supposed to be the prime timeline, that they are just doing their best to manage.
That's a good explanation as any, but it's always in fiction. It's always just in the nick of time.
Well,
if you're doing time travel, you can go back to any time you want.
Well,
and why not instead of dealing with this in the bridge and everything like that, why not go to this Romulan's childhood? You know what I mean? It's just this is why it's impossible. This is why it does not. All of this is way more complicated than we make it. It's kind of like the Enterprise going through that black hole or around that black hole. You don't have to explain it. You just want really good drama. But at the end of the day,
yeah,
it's impossible. You cannot manage that. And thank goodness we don't know how to do this.
Well, yeah. I will simply say I'm trying to adhere to what I have seen in the timelines, because what you're saying is true. That all you have to do is just go back and take out the Romulan to go back, but either from good storytelling standpoint or for whatever, there seems to be some kind of rules. You can only go so far. You can only change so much. The calculations would explode if you did this, and so they are supposed to be minor modifications, is what they're doing their best to corral.
Yeah, I think Groundhog Day did it the best.
Yeah, that's a good one.
I hope it's so. I mean, before I read about Akiva Goldsman and all the deliberate manipulation, I hope they revisit this Romulan and time incursion stuff in the future, because I just feel like you can't just leave this and never return to this subject.
Yeah,
of Romulans repeatedly going back in time and trying to do things. I hope this is further addressed at some point.
Yeah, I have a feeling they will.
I don't think this is going to happen, but a small part of me wonders, because this is like the Pelia question. Did she always know that she was destined to be on the ship because she had already met La'an, hundreds of years in the past?
Mm-hmm.
It's similar to that question. Will La'an going forward in the Prime timeline, will she notice little differences in her own ancestry? Or was her ancestry already altered since the beginning of us knowing the character? In other words, her ancestor originally came of age as an adult in the 1990s on Earth, but now won't come of age until the 2040s or something. So is the La'an that we've always experienced on Strange New Worlds since the very beginning, was she a product of Khan coming of age in the 2040s?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, they messed that up.
Okay.
That's yes is the quick answer.
Okay. Because I wonder if maybe in a future episode, I don't think so, but what if in a future episode, La'an notices something's a little bit off, like her uncle, like the way she remembered her uncle's life is not the way she reads about it. When I say uncle, I don't mean Khan. I mean like some other near ancestor had like a slightly different life than what she remembered.
That's possible.
Then it could be a spin-off, and it could be called Sliders.
Oh.
And they can slide through time.
And then they can cancel it and take it off Paramount Plus and
Okay.
Put it on HBO Max and then cancel that and put it on Sci-Fi and cancel it there.
right. Anyway, I don't think it's going to happen, but I'm just curious now about that. So La'an makes it back, presumably to our Prime timeline, because now I don't know if that term Prime timeline means anything anymore, but
It doesn't.
And she has the meeting with the time agent, just letting her know she can't tell anybody about it or anything. And as we've seen in other episodes of Star Trek. And then she calls Kirk, the Prime Kirk, and he's never met her in person before. And again, because I fully fell for this whole romantic situation in this episode.
You're embarrassing.
I was so there. I completely felt La'an's pain.
You're embarrassing.
I was completely in on her cry. It made me emotional. Not as much as Kat was emotional for the previous episode. I wasn't that emotional, but I really felt it, and I cannot wait for future interaction with La'an and the Prime Kirk and to see where that goes.
It's not going anywhere.
I'm over it. Thank you.
What?
It's not going anywhere.
Love it.
It's going somewhere.
Josh.
No.
It's going somewhere. I don't know where it's going, but it's going somewhere.
It's dead.
No.
It's going somewhere.
I mean, we already know Kirk's timeline, right? We already know Kirk's timeline.
Kirk's dead.
Things are different now. Khan came of age at a different time than the original Kirk timeline. La'an is going to change her name to Carol Marcus at some point.
Right, exactly. And she's going to change the color of her hair.
You have a son named David.
Wow, what is happening?
With Kirk.
Where are we right now?
Yeah, when are we? How about
I'm
that?
just saying, something's going to happen in future episodes, and I am ready and waiting with my popcorn and pickle and hot dog.
What? Okay.
An airplane hot dog with no mustard on it.
Exactly. Any other final thoughts on this episode?
Touching moment between Khan and Descendant. So that was more. Oh, by the way, she left the gun on the nightstand.
Yes.
What up with that?
She totally did.
I mean, we know the boy's got problems. Do not encourage him by just like, you know what? I'm going to leave this gun right here, kid. Good luck in the future.
There's so many mistakes at the end of this thing, but I can live with them. Like a bunch of mistakes.
She left it there. Did they show you that they left it there?
Yes.
So they meant that they did it for a reason.
She put it on the table and zapped away. Just left it right there.
Chekhov's gun.
She dropped it right on there. It was clear as day.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So then, what do you think she was trying to hint for him to commit suicide? Like, what was she trying to do?
No.
That would have been cool, though.
I just think our chief of security didn't think to bring the weapon with her. We're just going to let it go.
But what are the ramifications of this? This is like the chip.
I don't know, but I felt like she was in that room for a very long time.
She was, but she left it.
That gun is coming back. It's going to be like Chekhov's gun.
I said
right.
I said it.
Right. This is akin to like leaving the chip in the tea 800 in Terminator 1.
Yep.
And then some scientist is going to find it, except it's just going to be Connor or somebody, and it's going to completely create Skynet.
Remember the trouble the original crew went through when they left the tricorder, and they had to go back and try. The tricorder is the foundation of all the Starfleet technology, and the timeline is screwed now. So they're always leaving stuff.
The funny thing is, if they'd left a tricorder, like, no one would have even looked at it in 2022. They were just like, "Oh, that thing doesn't work."
No, we would have taken it and putting it in the package and in our closet and not realize.
Well, the time device looked like a beeper. No one would have messed with that. So it's got one light on it. This has got to suck. This can't be any real technology.
That really was the worst piece of prop they could ever have put together. It's like a button where it just presses it and the light changes color.
That was bad. That was pretty bad. I mean,
better than that.
An actual wristwatch, I think would have been a better device, but no, they went with the what's your guy's name? They're all angular that you're talking about. The
Tholian. Yes, it has that. It has that shape. It's either a Tholian or it's the Pennsylvania blood bucket symbol.
Sad.
I don't even know what you're talking about, and I don't want to know. So don't explain it.
Why does nobody ever know what the Pennsylvania blood bucket is? Everyone.
I have no idea what that is.
Everyone in this call knows has seen it before. You just didn't know it.
What is it? What did you say?
So in Pennsylvania, it's an iconic symbol, but you guys have all seen it before because
is it shaped like a bell? I mean,
they use it for the shape of the label for the Heinz products, like the Heinz ketchup. If you look at the shape of the...
What is it? Say it again. What is it called? A Pennsylvania what?
Blood bucket.
Blood?
Blood, BLOOD bucket.
We call it like the ketchup bucket.
But if you've seen the label on Heinz, it gets its shape from the iconic Pennsylvania shape.
I learned something tonight.
Yeah, me too.
Yeah, I was just gonna say it's like it's the Detroit Chrysler logo. It's the Chrysler version of it.
Yeah, it's a bit stretched. Yeah, kind of like that. What's going to be our unit of measure for this one?
Wire hangers. No,
no, not definitely not. No more wire hangers.
Let's do hot dogs.
How many African Americans at Harvard? Should we do that?
That would not be appropriate. Not appropriate. Wow. No.
Oh, that was so funny.
Did they have a reference to that in the episode?
That's in there. It's in there. Yeah. That was the last one.
It's definitely in there.
How did they?
Yeah, let's just move on. It's hot dogs, Eric.
Hot dogs.
Okay, how many Toronto-style hot dogs out of 5?
Kat, take it.
3.5. I mean, it was good. I liked it. I didn't love it, and I think it probably would have had a 4 before I talked to you guys.
Oh wow!
But yeah, I knocked it down a little because I knew they were going to do like a 4.
I'll go ahead and go.
Yeah,
I'm going to give this episode a strong 4 hot dogs out of 5 because aside from all the prime wish-wash, timey-wimey, I'm going to take that off the table because it annoys me so much. Everything else is left behind. I actually thoroughly enjoyed this episode. I thought it was one of my favorite of new Trek series. Definitely my favorite of the season so far. I am totally here with this future ship of La'an and Kirk. I completely want more. Completely want to see where we're going with the La'an character going forward. They've taken this character I really didn't care for in the cast and put her right up there next to Chapel for me. Yeah. I'm all in. So yeah, I really enjoyed it. Aside from that Ming Monginess, timey-wimey stuff. Aside from that, I love this episode.
Yeah. Josh?
Yes. I'll go with 4. Not just the 3 hot dogs that Kirk purchased. I would add another hot dog there.
Bold choice, sir. Yeah.
And go with the 4 hot dogs and ask Kirk to go get another one. He had enough money on him, so he should have been able to get me another one. No. I mean, what you're doing is you're really adding, any time, it's not space, it's space-time. And any single time that Star Trek goes and tries to do time travel in some way, shape, or form, it always excites me for obvious reasons. I just think that the stories it can be very interesting when you do that. And just this whole, like, the division thing going with Star Trek. I was unaware that we had the time agents and stuff like that. It's because I haven't watched all of Star Trek like you guys have. But love the concept, and I thought it was just a really good character episode. And overall, I just think it was really well done. Like, overall, like, there were mistakes in it, and there were things that
Yes, and I acknowledge that too.
that bother me, but like, overall, very entertaining. I really enjoyed it, and that's what I could say about Strange New Worlds.
Mm-hmm.
Is that it's more entertaining than I expected it to be. So, and I'll leave it there.
Nice. I remember watching the original series, and when there would be those episodes with the romance in it, I'd be like, "Oh, here we go." You know, I was like, "Oh, Kirk's got another girl. Here we go." Once again, though, Strange New Worlds has managed to call back the original series. And Eric, we forgot to get into this, but the musical hints in this episode were really quite extraordinary. Now, I don't know, they were trying to do something odd with contemporary music in there. I wasn't a huge fan of that. There were these big musical scenes where they had a lot of contemporary music in there, and I was like, is this a callback to something I don't know? That didn't quite resonate with me. But there were these musical moments where they would tip the hat to the original series. They would tip the hat to those little notes that when Kirk first sees the pretty girl, they did it, and they brought it back in this episode. So, go back and listen to the music in this. Like I said, I'm not talking about the contemporary. I don't know what they were pulling with that. But other than that, the hints really do take us back to original series once again. They take us back and bring us forward in a way that's quite remarkable.
Yeah. I mentioned when we first see Khan's name on the door, for literally 1 second, we hear like a callback to the Horner Khan theme. Like the little like realization moment from the Wrath of Khan soundtrack.
Yep.
The score has been low key, like very interesting in this series.
Yeah, how about so I obviously didn't do this episode with you guys, but when Spock was fighting himself,
oh yeah,
like the
oh yeah, yes, right. Mm-hmm.
That was awesome.
1,000,000% awesome.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, now Picard season 3, it has an interesting score too, but it's a bit on the nose. Like you can recognize the themes a mile away in Picard season 3 when and it's nice. It's just very obvious.
And they are next generation themes for the most part. I'm just
for sure.
But they are going way back with the original series. Oh, so that being said, just pointing out the music. 4 hot dogs. 4 hot dogs for me on this one.
Nice.
So Carl needs them to go back and buy another one too.
Indeed.
Yeah. The new episode should premiere in about 3 hours from time of recording. I've been trying my hardest to avoid all the damn teasers just for the next episode. I don't know what is going on with Paramount Plus and their promotion team, but they're just all about spoilers this year and putting things out ahead of time. So I think we're going to see a lot more of the crew again in the next week's episode. So I definitely, this is how I've always felt about this series since season 1. I am always like, I said this, I can't remember if this was on the podcast or not when I said this to some folks. Since last year, Strange New Worlds has been like, it may not be my favorite show of the last year or two, but it's the show that I'm really waiting for week in, week out. Like other shows, I can just wait for the new episode to come and watch whatever it is. And I don't mean just Star Trek. I mean all shows in general. But Strange New Worlds, I'm always pining so hard for the 7 days to pass to get my next fix. And as always, I'm still in that mode.
I just think it's so close to the original idea, and that's the reason why I like it. It's just very close to the original idea.
With modern sensibilities, but not in a bad way.
they're not killing us with politics either. They're really not. I mean, they did not bring up.
Yeah.
I mean, much to Kat's dismay, they did not bring up abortion once. No. No,
they are touching on politics, but in the spirit of classic Trek, it's like
they used to.
They used to. But it's more open ended.
Right.
It's not in your face like this way, that way.
Yes.
And that's why I said it could mean anything to you. Like some of the stuff they say, you could take it the way that you heard it, or somebody else can see it differently. So that's what I'm enjoying. That's what I'm responding.
Yes, I agree with that.
Yes,
totally.
I agree with that too. That's why it's really great.
Yeah,
I'm
and
enjoying it.
Since you said it, it does remind me the most of the original premise of Star Trek. They said Voyager was going to be that way. They said Enterprise was going to be that way. And I think it is very much that way. And it has modern sensibilities in the sense that even though it is episodic, we still get more character development than you ever got in the classic, or even TNG. So it's a mixture, but it still feels like core to me. And anyway,
agreed.
Yeah.
There you go. Wow. Thanks everybody. We obviously never had this particular crew on the podcast.
This was good.
But I hope Josh returns in the future.
Me too.
I'm gonna have to, because I just want to talk to Carl and Kat, because it's been forever. And
apparently they're on this podcast. I'm trying to extend their contracts on Mostly Harmless Cutaway. There's been a bunch of trade disputes and all kinds of things going on.
I need more money.
Their agents are like, it's ridiculous. The whole
Eric, just double it.
writer strike and everything. So maybe we can work something out.
Yeah, I'm gonna get a AI version of me to come on next time.
Oh, great! Have Catbot.
It could be Cat GPT.
Okay, yeah. But yes, we will continue onward. Kat said she's podcasted with Caleb before. I don't remember that.
Yeah.
Maybe it was an alternate timeline.
It was long ago in a galaxy.
I already changed that timeline. I already killed the Romulan and changed that timeline.
All right, that's fine.
But I look forward to experiencing it myself. But yeah. Whew. Until then, closing out the show today, this is Eric.
This is Kat.
This is Carl.
And this is Josh.
And until next time,
keep those beepers charged.
Beware Romulans bearing gifts.
Okay.
Don't panic.
Yeah, contractually we can't trademark. We can't really use that. So Caleb's going to cut that. Don't panic out. But I appreciate the sentiment.
How about I want the ship to go now?
We did that one.
Oh, you did that
twice already.
How about 13 Bannerman Road? We should just end with that.
Okay. Kat, you need to turn out your gain a little bit. You're clipping on my feed.
Sorry. I just haven't heard it in so long.
I know, I
gotta get a new pair of headphones.
I gotta say it like 12 more times.
Blown out the drivers on my headphones. I'm gonna have to apply for VA disability now.
Sorry, I was delighted.
What happened to you? Oh, this girl from Houston screamed in my ear.
Hello, RBG listeners, and welcome to the surprise bonus section. So due to some scheduling conflicts over the past couple of weeks, I've missed out on most of these recordings, and just to spare you all of having to listen to another one of those catch-up episodes, especially with me kind of forgetting what exactly I'm catching up on, I decided to quickly just, throw in some of these brief little thoughts after just watching the episodes. I'm still quite a bit behind compared to everyone else, and I only just finished the third episode today. And I just wanted to run through some of my initial thoughts with it. Of course, I won't go very in depth, as I'm sure the whoever was on this episode, the slate of hosts. I'm sure that they've already covered most everything that I would want to say, so I'm just going to give some little bits of highlights. I'll say right up at the front, I was at first a little disappointed when I got the sense that, oh, this is going to be another episode that's lacking some Pike. I always love to see my pal there, Anson Mount. So hopefully we get some good spotlights for him later in the season. But for a La'an-focused episode, yeah, I'm warming more and more to this character as the series goes on. I complained actually in the previous episode about, oh, when are they going to start to justify why they chose to make her a descendant of Khan? I don't know if this episode necessarily does it for me. Maybe nothing would. I don't know. Maybe I've always been pro them moving forward and kind of leaving some of their big moments in the past. But for having that bit of baggage there, I think that they do a fine job weaving that in the previous episode and in this one. So, they're working their way towards justifying it. Oh, but just while we're on the Khan connection there, oh boy, again, I'm not going to go into this too much because I'm sure the hosts on the show, especially if Carl and Eric are on there together, oh boy, I'm sure they're going to have a lot to say about this. I'll start by saying, ever since this Paramount Plus stuff started coming out, I would always argue that there's pretty much nothing that they could do to convince me that this is the Prime Universe. Visually speaking, character speaking, there's so much there that does not make sense. And they can call whatever they want. It's a new continuity to me. So in that way, them at this point throwing the gauntlet down and being like, okay, Strange New Worlds, like it can't be a direct continuation of TOS because of now this big timeline shifting with Khan. For me, as someone who's never thought this is the Prime Universe, I'm glad that they're just saying, okay, this is flat out in a different timeline or a different continuity. That's what they should have done from the start. But I'm sure it's going to piss people off. I'm sure it's already pissed people off. I really haven't paid any attention to the discourse around this season, but I'm totally fine with it. The only thing that I'm not totally fine with is I didn't need to see Little Kid Khan. I don't need to see any more Khan in Star Trek. They had a perfect end for this character, and here we are continuing again. We had Into Darkness. We had the little tendrils slipping in with La'an in the first season. Hopefully they haven't touched on this in Discovery. I don't know for sure. Oh, I guess they even had their little bits in Enterprise. Oh boy. But yeah, I just wish we didn't see Khan, but I'll move on. I wasn't a huge fan of Paul Wesley's Kirk when we first saw him at the end of season 1. But as a fan of that guy, just in general, due to his Vampire Diaries connections, I just find it pleasing to see him again. It's like, oh, there's my pal there, and I think I like him more in this one than in the previous one, especially his little touch of romance with La'an. I think it was actually a really well-handled bit of the episode on both parts. Both actors, I think, had good chemistry, and especially La'an having that kind of isolation to her character. I think that romance, kind of melting the ice around her, played out really well. I didn't mind seeing the time travel stuff. The temporal side of Star Trek can be interesting and sometimes bothersome or confusing. This one I think was interesting, less so on the bothersome and confusing side. Although that agent at the end, it was like, okay, maybe you are a little bit traumatized by what just happened, but you can't go to therapy or try to talk it out with anybody. You just need to keep it a secret and kind of hold on to that trauma for the rest of your life. These are some cold folks. Not exactly a huge fan of that little agency there. But in terms of the story and the plot, I was pretty pleased with all that stuff. I think that was an interesting place to put La'an in and Kirk. I liked the little bit when they got to the planet and, oh, what are we going to do for some money? And then Kirk shows his touch of strategic genius by just being a chess shark. I think that was quite fun. I really enjoyed how no one was really pissed off. They're all just like, wow, this guy's a marvel. I also like them stealing their clothes. I thought that was a cute little bit of bonding through crime. We've all been there. I'll say the Romulan agent. I was not expecting the Romulan twist. Perhaps I should have due to the picture that they found, but I was like, okay, that's interesting. But the actress there, Adelaide Kane, I've been a fan of hers for a long time, and I was happy to see her pop up in Star Trek. She played the lead role in the program Rain from, I guess it was almost 10 years ago now, probably around there. That's a little weird to think. But I've been a fan of hers ever since I should be embarrassed to say this, Power Rangers RPM. She played a recurring villain in that, and one of the better Power Rangers programs for anyone who's interested in that kind of stuff. But again, I don't want to go too long. I think the emotional moments hit well. Kirk's fate in the episode was unexpected by me, and I thought that they played that well too. I like the bluntness of it. And I especially really I thought it was a very beautiful touch to end the episode on, with La'an calling up the real Kirk and just seeing him alive there, and maybe trying to reach out and establish some relationship with him, even though she likely never really could have the relationship that she had with the other one. I still thought that was leaving a nice little door open, and I actually would like to see more scenes with the two of them. I think that if they brought back Paul Wesley, it'd be nice to pick up this thread again. And I will say I am definitely more pro bringing him back as compared to I was in the first time we saw him. Even though it's it doesn't really feel like Kirk, I think he's got enough charm just on its own that it becomes a new thing, and a thing that I enjoyed quite a bit in this episode. And I thought the reference to the Denoblian prison was a cute little touch for us Enterprise. I can't call myself a fan, but viewers. It's like, okay, you're referencing that program there. That's special. Yeah, I don't want to take too much time here. I don't want to make these my little soapbox, so I'll probably end it there. I'll give my rating. I don't know what the unit of measure was that they chose in the episode, so no, that could very much skew my rating here at this point. But I guess for my own rating choices, I'll say how many hot dogs out of 5, and I'll give this one a solid 3.5. I like the focus on La'an. I think that some of the episodes that have spent more time focused on her POV have been very strong in Strange New Worlds so far. So the track record continues with this one. I think the emotional bits hit home quite well. Maybe doesn't have as much message appeal that, say, something like Ad Astra per Aspera had, but just continuing to flesh out this character, continuing to flesh out her background. I think all that stuff serves the show quite well. But I still am very much hoping that we'll get more focus on my boy Pike as we're going forward here. But yeah, looking forward to checking out more Strange New Worlds, and hopefully you'll follow us all along as we go into the next one. Thanks.